You want me to stand up?
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, I think I like the big picture.
All right.
So today I'm here at Berklee in Boston, and I'm gonna make an interview with Mike King, and hope you guys enjoy it. All right?
Me too. All right.
First of all, could you please make a short presentation about yourself and what do you do?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Mike King. I am currently working at Berklee College of Music, doing a couple of things. I am the director of marketing here for the online school, berkleemusic.com, and I teach a number of courses here, one of which you took, which is online music marketing. I teach another course called Online Music Marketing with Topspin, another course called The Future Music. Occasionally I teach Music Marketing 101. They're all online courses, 12 weeks long, and I feel really lucky to have the opportunity to work with people like yourself from all around the world. You know, it's for me, it's really informative and interesting to chat with people everywhere about what's going on, because what's happening here in the States is different than what's happening in Brazil, what's happening in Europe. You know, it's kind of this slow evolution that we're seeing in a lot of different ways.
All right, all right. And the other question is, there has been 10 years since Napster broke the paradigm of the old-fashioned music industry. Now, assuming there is a new way of selling and marketing to a specific niche or tribe, as Seth Godin so eloquently puts,
yeah,
we can see a new type of artist emerging after these 10 years, the middle-class artist, or musicians that can pay up bills, buy cars, houses, and have a pretty decent average monthly income, working solely on their craft and career, in many cases without any record labels behind them.
Right.
Could this be a tendency or even the answer to what happened to the music market? Niches well developed by each and every artist?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things to say about that, I think. So when Napster was happening in 2000, when Napster kind of got started, the way that marketing was done was pretty formulaic, and you know, what was happening back then was that there were very few kind of megaphones. There were few outlets that were distributing to millions of people, right? So if you think about MTV is a good example. You think about retail is a good example. You think about kind of these few traditional outlets that exist that kind of transmit it out to folks. New release happening. So the major labels and the indie labels would tie in with these outlets that would transmit to everybody. And you know, for a lot of artists that worked. You know, it still works to this day. If you look at Lady Gaga as an example, or you know, Susan Boyle using American Idol. You know, that's an example of an outlet that transmits to millions of people. It's not very niche based. So what happened back in the day was, you know, it was harder for independent artists not working with the label to kind of get going. You know, there was sort of like the label was the way that they can do it. You know, people wanted to get signed. They need to get signed. They need to get signed to plug into these areas that were transmitting out to people. So since Napster happened, and you know, in the past 10 years, what I think has happened and is that there's now millions of outlets transmitting to fewer people. You know, so as an example, I really like this music service in the U.S. called eMusic. You know, to me it's a niche-based retailer. It was one of the earliest online retailers, and it's more focused on independent music. You know, although they're now working with labels, they're working with Sony, and I think they're working with Warner. I might be wrong about that. They've started working with more major labels. But when I got involved with it, I know that if I'm on eMusic, that it speaks directly to me. You know, I can find things from Stone's Throw, which is a great label that I like a lot. You know, so that's an example of kind of a niche outlet as a consumer that I'm paying attention to. I'm paying attention to Large Hearted Boy is another like music blog. Pitchfork I still pay attention to. That's a blog that's pretty massive. It's focused on indie music. So from a consumer standpoint, people are now plugging into what is it that I like in particular, rather than turning on the radio and listening to just a commercial radio station that's playing kind of like, you know, all of these tiny amounts of artists that are being played on commercial radio that's more designed to hit everybody. now the consumer has the choice to find what outlet speaks directly to them, you know? So that's from the consumer standpoint. From the artist standpoint, you have to think about that, where, okay, so what particular niche outlets can I plug into that share a similar, you know, like psychographic with me, you know? Like, when you determine, from an artist standpoint, here's what I stand for, you know, here's what my music is about, here are my values, that sort of thing. If you can find a psychographic that matches what you believe in, and then you find the outlet that collects those people and you can plug into that outlet, I think it's pretty effective, you know? So, you know, this is kind of a long answer, but to answer your question about the middle-class artists, in the past you kind of had here and here, you know? I don't know if you can see this, very low, starting out, and here, you know? And it was difficult to rise up without the help of a label. I still think that labels are helpful. An example is, you know, Merge has Arcade Fire. I think Merge is doing great work with Arcade Fire, as an example. I say Arcade Fire because the record came out on Tuesday. Today's Thursday. So I've been following what they're doing, and they're very good at marketing. And labels have great contacts. So I'm not saying don't ever sign with the label. What I'm saying is an independent artist can now use these tools that exist. They can, you know, market themselves very specifically in a niche way to bring themselves up, you know. And, you know, a good example is this band Fanfarlo, which is an independent band. They happen to use Topspin. Their goal was to break in the U.S. They're a UK-based band. They did, you know. They used these, you know, Topspin is a good example. I mean, that's what they used to bring themselves up here. And then they got signed. They got signed by Atlantic, I think. So, you know, like I said, labels aren't terrible, and if you want to build up leverage, there are tools that you can use now to directly target your fans, raise up your community, get these permission-based communication channels happening, get up here, and if your goal is to be signed on a label, you're building leverage to do that. If your goal is not to be signed with a label, which is fine too, you're still building up slowly, you know, and we're at the beginning stages of all this, which people forget, you know. iTunes started in 2003, you know what I mean? It's 2010. It's only been 7 years, so it's still Wild West. People are still sussing everything out, but I'm pretty excited about the opportunities that exist, and there are new things happening all the time that are helping people to optimize these channels, you know? So I'm optimistic about the industry. There's a lot of pessimism out there. This is, you know, I'm speaking right now in August 2010. A lot of people are talking about the problems that Live Nation has, you know. Live Nation is a massive promoter. They own venues. They, you know, manage a bunch of artists because they merged with Frontline. You know, so they're having problems selling tickets. So that's happening here with Live Nation up here. But if you look at people like Bowery Presents is another promoter, you know, that's independent. They're doing great, you know. So there's, you know, people like to talk about the negatives, you know. It's always out there, you know. But there are good things that are happening, you know. So bottom line, I'm optimistic about it.
All right. You actually burned like 2 questions
Oh,
in one.
Sorry.
Don't worry. Don't worry.
Yeah.